Good afternoon and welcome to our panel on ransomware. I'm Gerard Taylor and I will be moderating the session along with my panel of awesome guests who will all be responding and working with us on this discussion. Thank you for that. So I'd love to introduce you to the folks. Let's start from the top. Himanshu Pandey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right, so myself, Himanshu, I've been with Wipro for almost now 4 years, and I've been working in a PAM space for since last 15 years. I've seen technologies being transforming. I've seen companies in PAM space borning and taking up shape, and I've touched all the dimensions, length and breadth in terms of all the prominent PAM tools, including CyberArk. I've been working on CyberArk since the latest version was 5.0, and till that from 5.0 to 12.2 in the market. I've been working on all these, uh, and I've been considered, and you can find me on the leaderboard of CyberArk communities. I was topping the chart at one point, but now due to scarcity of that time, I am slipped on to second position worldwide.
Well, let me introduce you to Andy Thompson. Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation to be here. My name is Andy Thompson, and I am an advisor and evangelist for CyberArk Labs. This is the division of CyberArk that does ongoing research into information security and offensive technology. Before I joined the CyberArk team, wow, a little over 6 years ago, I spent my time in the trenches as a senior systems administrator and engineer. I've worked in all sorts of industries from large hospitals to movie theater chains to global retail organizations. I'm SSCP and CISSP certified by ISC squared, and I'm also GIAC certified pen tester. I'm also a really active member in the most awesome hacking scene in the planet, Dallas, Texas, where I am a organizer and the host of the Dallas Hackers Association. I'm also known there as a resident travel hacker, so I like to travel and go all over the world on a shoestring budget. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. Rishi, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Good day, everyone. It's nice to be here. I'm Rishi. I have been working with Agile for past 4 years. I have overall 22 years of experience in information technology and around 20 years of which is solely into security. So past 10 years, I have been exclusively doing privileged access management with multiple tools, and I have worked with 50 plus clients to build their privileged access management program uh, from the scratch. So I'm excited to be here and talk about ransomware and how privileged access management plays an important role in preventing ransomware.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rishi. Yamana, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Gerard. First of all, thank you for having me on the panel. Hello, everyone. I'm Yamuna Vasudevan. I'm working with Agile as a director in the IAM practice. I have around 18 years of experience in cybersecurity, specializing in information security and data privacy. And Like Rishi, for the past decade, I've been helping diverse clients strategize, design, and implement privilege access, secrets management, and other IAM solution, aligning with industry best practices and our ever-evolving cybersecurity world. So glad to be on the panel and share my thoughts with the audience on ransomware prevention. Thank you.
Thanks, Yamana. And just a little bit about me. I'm Gerard Taylor. I'm the practice head, practice manager for privileged account management at Wipro. My goal is to make sure that our clients get the absolute best service out of both ourselves and our vendors, in this case, CyberArk, to ensure that we create a privileged account program for you, our customers, that encompasses the full uh, gamut of what needs to be done in privileged account management, from lifecycle management all the way through to the endpoints, and to ensure that strategically we're meeting your business needs. So that's my goal as the practice manager. I've been in the industry for over 25 years and done everything from development, system administration, training, consulting and have been doing identity management for over 17 years at this point. So that's a little bit about me. So without further ado, let's kick off and let's ask our panel an initial question to see what their thoughts are on the topic of ransomware. So, folk, why would you all say that ransomware is so prevalent in today's IT environment, given that for the last 10 plus years, security has been an increasingly visible aspect of our IT environments?
I'll go first. I've got two real bullet points that I want to cover as to why now. One, no sector is invulnerable. Every organization is potentially susceptible to this potential ransomware risk. And I think what's more scary is the fact that there's such a low barrier to entry from the adversary side. In today's world of ransomware as a service, you no longer have to be smart enough to craft these sorts of ransomware payloads. You just have to be malicious enough to propagate it. So I think those are the two main reasons why you're seeing ransomware now more than ever.
Very good, Andy. Thank you. I can see that Himanshu has some thoughts. You want to?
Yeah, I certainly would like.
Go ahead, Rishi. I'll come after you.
Rishi.
Yeah, sure. So I would certainly like to chime in. This is the perfect time coming out of pandemic, talking about ransomware, right? Since everyone was remote, and now everyone is coming into the office. Everyone being remote and accessing your network remotely has made your network more vulnerable if you didn't have a lot of preventative, compensating and auditing controls. Ransomware has been more prevalent post-pandemic because the hackers have realized the lack of operational efficiencies, lack of multi-factor authentication, and they have been exploiting throughout this time on all of these lack of controls. So I would think this is what has made it more prevalent. And then yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on to that, Rishi, now since post-pandemic, we have seen a paradigm shift in the terms of working culture. We have seen 95% around the world people are working from home, and so as the working hours have enlarged, and while a person is working from home, is not only focusing on the work, there are a lot many other things also, as a kind of taking a break from a work. People are also accessing everything onto the web, right? And that potentially opens up doors to get vulnerable more onto that side, and obviously the curiosity has got something to make some clicks here and there, and then eventually landing yourself into unwanted pages and unwanted sites, this which may ultimately makes oneself vulnerable, and hence inviting the ransomware more potentially.
That's a very interesting thought. Thank you for that, Himanshu. Yaman, I can see you've got some thoughts crossing your mind.
Sure, Jared. All three of them nail it on the head. So another dimension to it is so post-pandemic, like they mentioned, because of the more vulnerability being introduced in the system, I would say there is a rush from the security team to get all the tools and technologies implemented. So lack of operational efficiencies in implementing or rolling out those tools also plays a major factor here. That is, if those security tools are not implemented, keeping the best practice in mind, the industry standards, all we are doing is giving only a false sense of security, right? So implementing those tools in alignment with the best practices and to the best of their ability will help tackle ransomware or any type of attack. And also, on top of all, we're seeing lack of leadership and involvement, accountability from them is also adding to the factor, right? So that is a top-down approach in implementing a security program or rolling out a solution with a heavy involvement from the top leaders in the organization is very essential. So most of the security initiative are not successful, giving a way for these attacks to be more successful because the products haven't been rolled out or in an effective manner or operating in silos. And we see a zero to very minimal involvement from the leadership. So I think that is one of the factors why these attacks are still prevalent.
Very good. So what you're telling us is that executive sponsorship is absolutely critical to the success of a PAM program. Thank you, Yamada. Now, Andy, as our traveling hacker, can you give us a rundown of the typical process that happens in order for a ransomware attack to occur? I know you also mentioned the ransomware as a service in your chat earlier on.
Absolutely, and for the sake of the process I'm going to walk you through, I'm going to start from the endpoint because that's typically the most known attack vector, but there's also ransomware being instantiated from DevOps CI/CD pipelines and vulnerabilities from servers. So this isn't just the only way, but the traditional method of phishing, execution of a malicious payload in a spreadsheet or an attachment leads to the execution of ransomware typically. That's no longer the case nowadays. What we're typically seeing is once the initial vector is compromised or endpoint is compromised, it's a matter of lateral movement. It's a matter of scaling through as many endpoints and as much data as possible and encrypting that data. It's much more important for them to encrypt as much data as possible. And it's no longer, again, just one single endpoint. What we're also seeing is a whole other aspect of double extortion, and even triple extortion, where they're exfiltrating data as well. So it's a whole new world, folks, when it comes to ransomware today. I could beat a dead horse on this point, but we need to absolutely be concerned about the traditional file encryption extortion, but also this new sort of data exfiltration double extortion methods that are being done today.
Awesome, thank you. Any other thoughts on the attack vectors and the approach to getting into a corporate's?
Yeah, sure. So I would certainly like to chime in. This is the perfect time coming out of pandemic, talking about ransomware, right? Since everyone is remote, everyone was remote, and now everyone is coming into the office. Everyone being remote and accessing your network remotely has made your network more vulnerable if you didn't have a lot of preventative, compensating and auditing controls. Ransomware has been more prevalent post-pandemic because the hackers have realized the lack of operational efficiencies, lack of multi-factor authentication, and they have been exploiting throughout this time on all of these lack of controls. So I would think this is what has made it more prevalent.
Well said, Rishi. Exactly said. Proper PAS controls, proper credential management really inhibits the ability of an attacker like myself to laterally move. So yeah, spot on.
Awesome.
Just would like to add on to what Rishi has mentioned, another compensating control, like he pointed out earlier, MFA could be one of the best defense mechanism here in terms of containing an attacker and stopping them from lateral movement. So having just a credential to get into the system or your server is no longer a norm. So you need to have multiple level of authentication to get into where you want to be. So that's one of the best defense mechanism as well.
Right. Right, and to add on to that one, it's not just the MFA, it's a combination of multiple tier security, MFA, then putting onto the check of the ransomware, then putting onto the check on your credential management as well as the privilege ID management, and securing down your AD entire infrastructure. That is a complete, package. Or one has to look on to securing the environment.
Very good. Very good. So, one topic that has been mentioned to me recently a number of times is cyber insurance. Do you think that ransomware, privileged account management programs are important in the context of gaining cyber insurance? And could we talk briefly about what cyber insurance is?
Yeah, sure, Jared. So it's one of the best defense. That is, it could be considered as a proactive risk mitigation strategy, having your cyber insurance or a liability coverage, if you will. So most of the insurance organizations are offering you coverage in case if you were to be a victim of a ransomware attack, covering your financial cost and any data loss that comes along with it. But in my opinion, it's like if you don't have the right to crash into someone just because you have an insurance, right? So it's one of the risk mitigation strategy. And what we have seen is recently because of so the ransomware attack has gone up 300% from 2017 till 2022 because of the COVID pandemic and other political situations that we are encountering now. So given all that, some organization getting liability insurance or cyber insurance hasn't been difficult. Just like your other insurance, the cost goes up if you have already been a victim of an attack. And also, one of the surveys says that there is about like 40% of reduction for an organization getting a liability coverage if your internal security controls aren't tightened, if you're not following best practices which relevant to what industry you're in. So to sum it up, it's really a good proactive risk mitigation strategy, but we have to do more on top of it. And you really have to be very diligent to even qualify for the insurance coverage.
Once you have a health insurance, it does not mean that you stop caring for your health, right? It is exactly like cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is a last resort. When I talk to my customers and they ask me about cyber insurance, the first thing that I ask them is, what are your preventive controls? If something is happening, are you able to prevent it? If your preventive controls are not strong, what are your detective controls? So if you cannot prevent, can you detect something like this happening? And if you cannot detect, can you actually audit and do a post-mortem on what has happened? And if you have these controls implemented fully, then only cyber insurance makes sense, because you have gone through all of these hoops. And if still hacker can get into your network, then definitely you are going to end up using cyber insurance. But if you cannot have all these controls, and if you say that I have a cyber insurance and I'm secure, then that is absolutely a false assumption, or there is no point in having your cyber insurance in the first place.
It's not a matter of this or that. We have to have insurance or not have insurance. It's really a play in the deck. It's a matter of compensating controls, that defense in depth that we hear so much about. And one of the requirements we see in just about all of cyber insurance is a strong privileged account security program. And so I'm all for cybersecurity insurance as a mitigation control to ransomware, because it plays very well because of the requirements of having, again, strong privileged account strategies in place already.
Right. And Himanshu, I saw earlier on that you had your hand raised. You had a comment.
Yep. I was listening on to the points put forward by Yamuna and Rishi. So it would be really interesting to know into the current environment, like how this cyber insurance gonna work. Like all the insurance we have currently are logistic in nature, like life insurance, logistic in nature, car insurance, logistic in nature. But this cyber insurance is something into a non-realistic or non logistic in nature, and there does not gives guarantee on like who is gonna do what and who is gonna fall victim to the cyber attack. Okay, let's I mean we'll give you a very a simple example. Like in India, there are message spoofing. People will send on the messages to you or to your mobile that okay, we are calling we are from such and such bank, and your KYC is not complete, and then your connection or your bank account is liable to be get closed. And in panic, a lot many people, and including many the people who falls victim very frequently are the old or senior people. They are not aware about whom to, and then they simply call away to those numbers and then give their very confidential information, and then they fall victim to that. So for such people, if we are gonna go for the cyber insurance, I'm pretty much sure the companies will stop doing at some point in time and say that okay, you are on your own.
So moving on to the next question, team. Managed detection response and endpoint detection response. Are these solutions adequate for managing ransomware? Or is it maybe a case of closing the barn door after the horse has fled? What is your opinion on the whole MDR, EDR in the context of ransomware?
It's definitely an interesting question. Before we get into that, I just want to touch upon the MDR, the managed detection response and endpoint detection response solutions a little bit, so that it help us understand, like to your point, like why we are exactly being the case of closing the barn door when the horse is fled, right? So within the IT environment, an MDR solution kind of remotely like monitors, it detects your various levels of threat and a response based on your predefined processes and inputs into the solution. And your EDR, on the other hand, so it provides your necessary visibility into those security events on the endpoint specifically. So in my opinion, they are similar to SIEM, your managed security services. So we would say like it's the those solutions kind of evolved into MDR and EDR. So what are these solutions bringing to the table? So what is new about it? So the MDR vendors claim that they provide like quicker response through the human expertise, like your the process, the like advanced processes and your threat intelligence as well. So having said that, relying on a human response to a threat that is already being materialized is not an effective solution, or at least it's not 100%. That's not the only solution, right? Because like we all learn cybersecurity 101, the humans are the weakest link in the security. And so what we tell our customers is like, do not trust your employees, as hard as it might sound, because you do have an internal threat in your organization if you're depending on human for all these processes to roll out all these processes and your cybersecurity in general.
Sorry to interrupt,
so
Yamina,
to overcome this,
you're absolutely right there. Internal threat is a real risk. Specifically, ransomware actors are actively seeking out malicious insiders to recruit and bribe them to leave the door open for them. So you're absolutely right. We need to be assuming breach here. Sorry to interrupt, but you hit on a really key point there.
I mean, you are the expert. You have seen all these level of threats more than any of us. And going back, so to overcome this problem, so in addition to implementing these EDR, MDR tools, a more proactive solution like your endpoint protection management tools and controls must be put in place. For example, we have the endpoint privilege privilege manager solutions from CyberArk, which can complement these threat detection and responses. So it can work hand in hand together to overcome these problems. And it also enforces your least privileges and allow your organization to block and contain an attack at the endpoint, reducing the risk of your information being stolen or like encrypted or double encrypted for this ransomware attack to be successful and to be held for ransom, if you will.
And you just, again, you and I are like on the same wavelength today with this double extortion thing here. Back to the MDM EDR or EDR question. Here's where I think EPM, the Endpoint Privilege Manager, least privilege application control, really it emphasizes and makes the EDR solution better. With Lapsus just recently, in a particular breach, they actively sought out the FireEye agent and shut it down. And this is what we're seeing ransomware actors do, is they're targeting EDR and XDR applications. And so we need an additional layer of control to protect those EDR agents. And that's one aspect of this EDR discussion. The other is that there is a potential gap here with those products, in that they may be tuned to be looking for rapid file encryption or rapid read and writes in order to detect. But with today's double extortion, where data exfiltration is in many ways just as preferable to data encryption, these solutions may not be the end all in detecting and responding to them. And so this is why we're more concerned about data execution and command execution, and preventing the attacker from getting the initial foothold before they can do any of that first. That's really where I think the combination of least privilege application control, endpoint data response, this is that better together, that team sport, defense in depth that we keep hearing about. And so I absolutely believe EDR, XDR has a place in the ransomware formula. Again, it's just like cyber insurance. It's just multiple plays together that make up a really strong, robust ransomware program. So I hope that kind of explains a little bit about my opinions on the subject.
So I'm hearing something of prevention is better than cure. So by stopping the users from actually having access in the first place, then what we have EDR and MDR being there for is to detect the anomalies rather than detect the events when they're happening the first time. Himanshu, your thoughts on this?
Correct.
Yep. So Gerard, it's like, in the entire security world, most of the controls or most of the measures are reactive in nature, whereas a lot many things are required to be proactive. Okay, so whether it's MBR, EDR, or any, for matter of the fact, any of the security tools, we just put it into a terms of reactive approach. Like if we are caught up into the middle of the attack, or we are just trying to prevent it, so that's a reactive approach. Nobody goes into that one in a proactive manner, like, okay, let's have something in a proactive manner. Let's keep a monitoring, let's keep a red team, blue team, put it into the front foot and working absolutely tirelessly around the clock just to ensure that, okay, and to some extent, yes, many organizations around the world are opting this methodology, but that this proactive approach is required to widely to be implemented across the platforms, across the industry, and around the world.
Very good, very good. So I'm hearing the terms EPM, endpoint protection management, a lot, but is ransomware truly an endpoint problem, or is it symptomatic of a larger attack on, the larger IT environment? Andy, I see you smiling.
Oh
I think
yeah.
this is
Thank
something
you.
you want to
Yes,
answer.
I was just chomping at the bit to answer. Yes, it is an endpoint issue. Don't get me wrong, but with there's being so many vectors in, whether it be system vulnerabilities like Log4j, or third-party or vendor risk, like we saw with Kaseya being a vector for ransomware. We've even seen CI/CD pipelines and DevOps being a vector in as potential ingress points for malicious actors. It's not just an endpoint concern, and even then, the goal for bad actors is to laterally move and weasel within an organization into the server infrastructure. So between endpoint, server, DevOps, cloud, there is so much more than just endpoint that needs to be considered. And that's why, again, we're here today with our partners to discuss how to approach ransomware from a strategic perspective. What compensating controls need to be applied where in different organizations, because they're all different depending on the organization's priorities, existing compensating controls, regulation requirements. So this is why we're here to discover and discuss which are the appropriate PAS controls to address ransomware. So yeah.
Awesome. And that's kind of, I see nodding heads. So I'm guessing that really ransomware and the answer to it is not just a technology problem, but there is just so much more to how we need to respond to that. And I can see Yamana's nodding. I see Rishi's nodding. You guys have all got answers. So come on, jump on in here, guys.
Yeah, sure. I'll definitely like to add to what just said. It definitely is the endpoint problem, because endpoint is the one who suffers from the ransomware, right? But then how the hacker gets to the endpoint is because you have people, processes, and technologies around these endpoint. Be talking about the weakest link that are people. If you don't have a good training program for people, if the technology that you have is not implemented to the best of its capability as per the best industry standard practices and processes, if well-defined processes, guys, your endpoint is going to get suffered anyways, right? So it's an endpoint problem, but then who's going to take that hacker to your endpoint is your people, processes, and technologies if you haven't been implementing them to the best of its ability. That's what I feel.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. Just like to add on something on top of that, Gerard. Like Rishi mentioned, like the PPT framework or the triad. So that's like it sounds cliche, but that is the golden rule that you need to keep evaluating. And he said it rightly. So without that, the hacker can't do anything. They cannot be successful. So for example, like talking about the process, right? Like, so for instance, not mandating your password rotation, you're just a sitting duck for the attacker. So previously, Andy mentioned how an attack is executed. Like he explained it very clearly, like how it is being pulled off by an attacker, right? So if we get deep into that, the cyber kill chain or the attack chain, if you will. So without moving into the privilege escalation and lateral movement stages, like Andy talked about, the attacker cannot be successful. So in order for them to be able to successful, they should elevate the privileges, leverage any vulnerable admin accounts sitting on your environment for them to execute some malicious code, and must be able to like laterally move into your environment to cause enough damage to your organization. So like it's discussed, so this is where your endpoint solutions can't contain 100%, can't contain an attacker 100% and tackle the problem single-handedly. A survey says that in most of the ransomware attacks, so the forensic team has seen a dormant or an orphan account getting suddenly active. So to your point, we are dealing with a larger problem here and need a strategic solution and a cohesive solution, like getting all the tools in the row, and like your MDR, your EDR, your EPM, endpoint privilege manager, SIEM, and also your multi-factor authentication, your tiered level of security, and your PAM solutions and your identity governance, which especially tackle the people and the process side of things. You're integrating with your governance solutions. With all this, gonna help you resolve that level of problem. And also continuous monitoring and tightening of your internal security controls, your processes also helps, right? So for instance, if your internal security process doesn't mandate least privilege, you're just increasing the probability for an attacker to be successful with your privilege escalation. And if your privilege accounts, if you are not establishing an ownership of your privilege accounts, then you would end up having a plethora of orphan and privilege accounts, the dormant accounts, just waiting to be activated by a malicious person.
That is a really great answer, Yamina. And I want to put a pin in the strategy side here and the business side, because I think that's something we need to touch back on. In your many years of doing this, tell us about these dormant accounts and these accounts that to use Yamina's word, a plethora of accounts that exist in organizations.
Here, I've got one. I've got a great example of a dormant account story. So we have this thing at DHA we call One Time on a Pen Test, where we tell stories about crazy situations that happen in pen tests. And I did a scan of an organization and found a domain admin password that was well over provisioned. It was actually being used to synchronize the inventory on these handheld pilot scanners in a warehouse. And so this domain admin password was literally 18 years old. And everybody who had been working at this warehouse knew this password because it had just been handed down through the generations. This password could vote. It could go off to war. It could buy cigarettes. I mean, it just blew me away that this password was so over provisioned and everybody knew it. So that's my story.
I have been seeing that in the Linux environment more, Andy. So the Linux team is more hostile when you get any solution like privilege access management or secrets management, because literally they think it's like we are denying their service by kind of locking their accounts.
My root from my cold dead hands. That's what I was once told. You have to explain.
Yes.
You got to explain. Look, it's not a matter of taking power away. It's actually empowering you to do more with with less privilege. It's good stuff. But yeah, fun stories. But this might be a good opportunity to talk about discovery and audit. I don't know if you all are familiar with CyberArk's discovery and audit tool. This is the tool that is used to discover old passwords, vulnerable to pass the hash. This is where we find 18-year-old passwords and things like that. Works on Windows, Linux, AWS, SQL databases, IIS servers, you name it. And it's a really powerful tool, especially when you're getting started, to figure out, hey, what's going on in our environment? How ugly is our baby?
How ugly is our baby? Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
But let's get back to Yamina or Rishi on the context of how important is that strategic or business approach to solving this ransomware problem from the top down?
Yeah, absolutely, Gerard. I'll take that question. Having a strategy in place, be it for your privileged access management or identity and access management, is extremely important. Strategy actually gives you the complete picture of your program, and I never call these as projects. It's a program. So basically, privileged access management strategy goes through bits and pieces of your complete program, how it is implemented, what is the assurance level of your existing program, and what you are implementing today may not be valid tomorrow, right? So the strategy that we always recommend to our customers goes through how CyberArk is implemented or how their privileged access management program is running, making sure all the processes and all the bits and pieces are running or implemented as per the security best practices or as per the overall recommendations from CyberArk. So it is very important. Actually, Andy brought up a very good point of DNA scan, right? So I always recommend my customers to run the DNA scan every 6 months, so you exactly know where you started and where you are today. Say, for example, as a part of these strategies, we also review the assurance level of your existing PAM infrastructure. The processes that you are using, are those going to be the overall operational nightmare 5 years from now, or are those going to stay operationally efficient? So I would highly recommend all the customers to run the strategy and see where your CyberArk infrastructure is. And I always give this example to all my customers. iPhone comes with thousands of features, but we use it only for texting, calling, social media, and emails and whatnot. Similarly, CyberArk can do a lot of stuff. It is important that you know what that tool can do and implement it to the best of its capability and get the most on return on investment. And in all of this, I always have customers. I always recommend customers to use the top-down approach, where all of these instructions or prescriptions are coming from the management, and the engineering and operations is working in conjunction with the overall compliance team.
I always talk to our clients about the exact same thing, which is that it's all well and good having a strategy, but if you don't reevaluate it regularly, and I often propose once a year, then you won't know if you're still on track, if your priorities have changed, if you need to reprioritize. So obviously, we always start from the position of talking about the full program that we want to put in place, but we also then need to go regularly. How are we doing? The health check. Are we still on on target? What do we need to change, and so on and
Correct.
so forth. Yeah.
Exactly, Jared. And yeah, like Rishi mentioned, it's just a tool implementation. It's a program, and it is a multi-year journey, if you will. So many of our clients come to us like, we need quick fix, and what's a low-hanging fruit that we can reap and just check a box in audit, or we have already been under attack, and like we are a victim of an attack, and we want to implement a quick solution, but that's not going to help you. It's just going to give you a false sense of security again, because you have to treat it as a program. So a lot of other solution along with your privilege access management solution working together, just like your Active Directory, your access management solution, your authentication solution, or your IAM solution, your HR work system like your Workdays and stuff like that. So it's like a cohesive solution, a collective solution that you need to look at, and not a quick fix. So your quick fix is like applying a band-aid to a thing that you need surgery to. So do not rush into any quick fixes, and treat this as a security program and like a multi-year journey to get business benefit out of what of your spending and of your budget, if you will.
I don't know if this is worth putting in there, but about a year or so ago, before I transitioned over to the more offensive side of CyberArk, I was part of our PAS program office. It was my responsibility to work with some of our largest clients and develop these sort of long-term, multi-year strategic roadmaps for their privileged account programs. And you guys are absolutely like right on track with the strategy of mitigating the highest risk first, and moving down the ladder from a risk perspective. And that's really what we do in Print. If you're not familiar with that, it's on our website, and it really gives us strategic guidance and direction that is customizable for organizations. And this is really where I think our partner relationship allows us to customize that blueprint, because you don't it's not specific recommendations, it's more guidance. And that's where we need our partners to help guide these strategic programs into efforts. So that's a little bit about what we did prior to that.
The CyberArk blueprint is something that we work very strongly with as we as we work with yourselves and our clients to build that out. Um, I'd like to touch on that. How we as an alliance, a partnership, can work as a tripod where we go into our clients' environments and work together with you, CyberArk, and ourselves to build out that solution. Any thoughts on that, Rishi, Yamana?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Gerard, because right now I'm working with two customers doing the exact same thing. Let's put it this way. All good things come with maintenance. So if you want those things to stay good, they have to be maintained. Similarly, your privileged access management program, if you have implemented it today, as the time passes, new threats are coming. The external attackers are getting smarter day by day. Similarly, the internal employees also are getting smarter day by day. Is your privileged access management infrastructure, your program as a whole, is ready to actually take that hit, which is getting intelligent day by day? So I generally recommend my customers to go through these strategies and map those back to what industry standard best practices are, because what you are doing today, not necessarily you'll be following the same practices in a couple of years, right? Because there would be a lot of automation, there will be some of the technologies, those are retiring. So we always have to go back and revisit and make sure that all of these programs are implemented in the most effective way. And then we bring a lot of industrial knowledge. We have worked with several customers, be it healthcare, retail, insurance, banking, and we have been there and done it all. So we basically bring that all the intelligence and try to map it and work through all of these use cases per se with the customer and make sure that what they are doing is making them ready for any threats that may arise, maybe internally or externally. That's what I think, Jared.
How do we, as professionals in this area, as Wipro, as CyberArk, help our clients to prevent these ransomware attacks? We've talked around a number of different areas, but let's get some, at the end of the day, our friends who are watching this webinar, this panel, they really have probably turned on to watch this because they want to get some ideas of, well, okay, but how does this, affect me? How does this pertain to me? So maybe you could jump in with some thoughts about how we as a team can help our clients, help our viewers.
All right, I'll take this one. I think it boils down to what your security profile ultimately looks like. What is your priority? If your concern is ransomware in the infrastructure, maybe I would recommend running DNA. I'm sorry, if it was the endpoint, I would maybe consider looking at least privilege and application control. I mean, again, if it's a DevOps concern from ransomware, you might want to look at, the risk profile of your CI/CD pipeline. Ultimately, it boils down to syncing up with your security experts, your agile team here to, ascertain where our risk is from a ransomware perspective and what CyberArk controls would be most applicable to apply to those. So I think that's what we can do is say, hey, let's bring the pros in, circle the wagons, figure out what's important, and let's wrap a control around it. That's my recommendation.
So, in closing, team, great thoughts, great conversation. I know Yamana mentioned quick wins earlier on. What are some things we can hit on rapidly or educate our clients on where they could see a rapid reduction in the possibility of ransomware as we embark on the larger journey of locking things down correctly from a privileged account management perspective?
Sure, I can take this. So just like you mentioned, first, educate your people or on your internal security process and ensure that they adhere to those controls that have already been put forth. All right. So that's very important. And like next thing is like evaluate and tighten your existing processes on your password management, your security event responses, especially with your privileged users and your privileged accounts. And also like make sure they are your technologies or the solutions that you've implemented or in line with your industry best practices, because that is where we have seen many of our customers fail because they rush into rolling out a solution and they don't look into like how effectively or how best it can be implemented to complement its capabilities or like to leverage the fullest of what the solution could offer, right? And on an overall suggestion would be to first know your privilege accounts by using, Andy has mentioned on the DNA scan. So do your scanning on the network and first understand what are your types of privilege accounts that is lying around in your environment, and how risk and what kind of risk they possess by doing a risk assessment and evaluation on your existing environment. And on the application side of things, have an application control by leveraging your endpoint privilege management solution. So having both a dedicated PAM solution and an endpoint privilege management solution is going to help you remove your localized from your endpoints, thereby securing your endpoints from the attackers. And also by containing them on the privilege escalation stage of your cyber kill chain, by not giving all the privileges for the users. So the users must be able to elevate their privileges only for specific tasks and on demand basis. And also like create an isolation layer on your network, have a tiered level of security, so that even if the attacker get into your environment, the lateral movement is stopped, or like you stop the attacker right there and kind of contain them, quarantine them when you stop them proceeding to the next level in the kill chain. And also we have also talked about it, Gerard, like having a continuous monitoring and auditing on your solutions, so that also helps, and having an identity governance solution by ensuring you have the right owners assigned to your accounts, and that's continually being certified and reassessed, kind of helps you prep up for the game as well. I'm sorry,
Thanks,
it's a
Yamuna.
long ranting, but
Long 50 seconds.
that's more than
Andy,
2 6.
Andy, as our hacker, what would make you irritated and feel like they've stopped you from getting on in?
For me, it's about not being able to execute code, the ability to detonate the payload. And so the immediate takeaway, if I could give you all to take away from this session today, would be, again, running DNA is a great recommendation, but specifically for ransomware, I would recommend EPM has a 30-day free trial, and there's a policy called ransomware protection. I set up this workshop just the other day, and it's literally like an easy button. Once you enable the policy, ransomware is stopped in its tracks because we're absolutely executing the principle of least privilege along with proper application control. So if you immediately want to stop ransomware in its tracks today, go ahead, check out that 30-day free trial, download the EPM, and kick the tires and light the fires and give it a shot.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. Himanshu, as our implementer of note, tell us your thoughts on how we can get those quick wins, how we can see immediate success in one way or the other.
So, being an implementer or service provider, one thing which always comes to my mind, and I always communicate to our potential client, is who is doing what. That we need to take on care of, like among, especially in the administrators, be it your database administrator, your system administrators, or network administrator, whosoever have got a privileged access. one needs to be very much stringent on that who is doing what, and then that's wherein we come into a requirement of a PAM solution. PAM solution makes ensure that you know who is doing what by recording your sessions, taking a keystrokes, making a complete audit trail that at what time you did what, at what time you logged in, logged out, and in a conjunction with the ransomware prevention method, which is like EPM in this case. These PAM and the EPM technology complement each other, and then at the same time we implement the AI-based synaptics tool, which is called PTA, Previous Threat Analytics, integrating all these into one single plugin or one single dashboard, which gives you a comprehensive security in terms of your privilege IDs as well as the local administrators, preventing unauthorized access or preventing any unauthorized installation of any unwanted software onto your systems. So this is precisely technologies which are complementing each other and then securing the boundaries
Wonderful. Thank you,
of your
Himanshu.
organization.
Rishi, as we close, what are your last thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. So, as an advisor, tell customers three things. One, build the trust. That's the first thing. The second one is make sure that you're doing continuous authentication, and third one is communication and training. So these are the things I would highly recommend to all our customers, and run the strategies at least once a year to make sure that the technologies that you have are implemented to the best of their capabilities, and all these threats evaluate every year, every month, every day. Your technology need to have that assurance level to combat or to keep up with all these threats.
Thank you, Rishi. Folks, it's really been great having you with us on this session. Can't tell you how much we love being able to talk to you all about these. And by now, you'll have seen over the last hour that we have an incredibly excited and passionate group of folk here who love what they do and would gladly have a discussion with you. So feel free to touch base with any one of us. If you've got questions, if you need more answers, or if this dialogue provokes some thoughts in you, we're all there to discuss and talk to you on any of the topics or any of the things that have been highlighted in the session. So thank you very much for attending. Love to see you all, and we'll chat as you start to talk to us. Thank you.